Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'll start in a minute, still waiting for everyone to take their seat. In the meanwhile, let me show you something interesting. I mean, it could be interesting depending on you. I'll show you you. So here is you. Before we get started, I want to get to know you a little, or your technologies a little. Hey, hello everybody on the screen. Are there any developers in the audience? Okay, so I'm in the right place. That's a good beginning. Now, which one of you has Android device? Most of you, okay. iOS device? Windows 10 device? BlackBerry? Just one, okay. And about computers, how many of you have Mac? Windows? Most of you? Linux? Pretty amazing. I don't know what other operating system exists. Chrome OS? Nobody. Okay. One. Okay. You are the savior. So with that, I think we are ready to begin. I hope that you had a good lunch and you are ready to learn something new about Web Bluetooth. Does anybody here have experience with Web Bluetooth? Okay, so you come to the right place to learn about it. Before we get started, a few words about me. So my name is Uri. I'm a Google Developer Expert for Angular and Web Technologies. Google Developer Experts is a program where Google recognizes people who speak about open source technologies, write blog posts about them, and contribute to related open source projects. Apart from that, I also really love robotics and electronics. This is a small project I did a few months ago for wireless power with Arduino. Anybody here have an Arduino board? Wow, you're an awesome audience. Cheers for you, applause. Yeah, thank you. So that's for the technology part. Now, for the fun part, I also dance salsa. I used to have a salsa school in the past. Any salsa dancers in the audience? I will take some recommendations for good clubs in Krakow soon. And 5 years ago, I went to Peru. And I got myself some musical instrument, this pan flute. Let me play to you something real quick and see how many of you recognize it. Dziękuję. And last but not least, I work for BlackBerry. Yes, they still exist. So that's all about me. And let's begin with our agenda. What are we going to talk about today? And why do I have a webcam here? So today we're going to talk about Web Bluetooth. But before we get to Web Bluetooth, we'll make a short detour to speak about the physical web, which is a related technology, and in my opinion, it's not less exciting than Web Bluetooth. Then we'll speak about the basics of Bluetooth and what Web Bluetooth is. And finally, the fun part will be where we will see some live demos. So get ready. We are starting in 3, 2, 1. With the physical web. So we won't go into deep details about physical web. I will just say a few words about it, and then hopefully some of you with the Android or iOS devices will be able to experience it. The physical web is a new standard that allows devices to broadcast the URL to everybody in their vicinity. Like I can broadcast the URL for my computer to anybody in the room. If you have an Android device, you will need to enable Bluetooth and location services, and then you will probably see a notification about nearby devices. You also need to have some kind of data or Wi-Fi connection for that to work. So Bluetooth, location services, and Wi-Fi or data. If you have iOS and you have Chrome installed, please do the following. We have this notification bar, this notification drawer, just open it. Go all the way to the bottom. Make sure you have Bluetooth enabled, of course. Go all the way to the bottom and click the Edit button. Once you have done this, you will have an option to add applications. Just add Google Chrome. If you do this, you will get in the notification bar in a few moments a link to my blog, something like physical web, nearby objects are broadcasting web pages. And you probably get a few more URLs. I saw that some people are already using this here in this conference. And some of you should see by now a link to my blog. On Android device, I remind to you, you need to enable, here it is, you need to enable location, Bluetooth, and probably Wi-Fi, Android 4.4 and DR. So how many of you have got my broadcast? Okay, quite a few. Here is one more. If you want to read more about the physical web and why it's useful and how you can start broadcasting your own URLs, you can do it on my blog. I have a special article that explains how you can broadcast the URL. And to summarize with the physical web, it's really useful for conferences to broadcast the agenda to everybody in the room, for hotels to broadcast information about the events in the evening, or any other use case you can think about. So that's about the physical web. Use Bluetooth to broadcast the URL to everybody in the room. Now we are going to do a little switch and speak about the basics of Bluetooth. So we are not going to talk about the old Bluetooth, also called classic Bluetooth. You know, you had all those headsets that you could pair with your phone and type some pin. That's old Bluetooth. Now there is a new standard called Bluetooth Smart, or also Bluetooth Low Energy. It's a part of Bluetooth 4. So if you have a Bluetooth 4 hardware, most phones have it today, you can use it. And apart from Bluetooth Smart, it also has another name, Bluetooth Low Energy. And you can guess the reason is it doesn't require a lot of energy for communication. In addition, the bandwidth is really low. When you use Bluetooth Low Energy, you can have maximum like 5 or 6 kilobytes per second. So it's not good for audio or video, like old Bluetooth, like classic Bluetooth. But it is good for sensors or motors or anything else that you need to send small packets of communication. And it has another advantage. So it's low energy, low bandwidth, and also low latency. It means that the communication is really fast. You send a command, the other device gets it in less than 10 milliseconds. So that's another important property of Bluetooth Low Energy. Finally, with Bluetooth Low Energy, you no longer need to do pairing between the devices. You can just connect to a device and send it commands without pairing and entering PIN codes. It is still possible to do it, but it's not required, and most devices don't require pairing. Just put a device, put a phone, and start speaking. So it's much simpler for the users. Now, I'm telling you that Bluetooth Low Energy is low energy, but how low does it go? You see this battery of like watches and calculators. For how long do you think I can run a device, a Bluetooth Low Energy device, using this battery? For how much time? Any ideas from you? Okay, great. I got here 1 month, 3 months, 1.5 years. And apparently, all the answers are correct. It really depends. Yeah, I wouldn't say to any one of you that you are wrong or something like that. It actually depends on how frequently you communicate. I heard about people who even got it to last for 3 years on this battery by lowering down the bandwidth even more and the communication frequency. So it is finally a technology that we can use in devices where we can't replace batteries. If you had a pacemaker installed in your heart, you probably wouldn't want to replace the battery every 2 months, right? Yeah, a small battery can last for more than a year, and that's the purpose of BLE. You can install the device once and forget about it. You don't need any maintenance. And therefore, it's useful in all sorts of situations where you have no access to power or to frequently replace the battery. Other than that, there are 2 things that we need to know in order to use Bluetooth. And I'm going to teach this to you now. Just 2 terminologies that you need to know. So the first one is services. I have a device, let's say a smartwatch, and this device can have several functions. Each function is a service. For example, perhaps I have a battery on my watch. I mean, it makes sense. So it can expose a battery service that tells the devices around it how much battery it has. So this is one function of the device telling others how much battery it still has. Another example would be heart rate. Maybe my smartwatch has a heart rate monitoring circuit inside. So other devices can communicate with it, and they can query it for the heart rate of the user. Now, the good things about services is that there are several standards for them. So all the heart rate capable devices implement the same heart rate service. If we create an application that can connect to one of them, it will be compatible with all of them. So that's the importance of services. They are like standard ways of accessing individual functions on the device. Another example would be blood glucose level. Maybe I got some equipment that can do blood tests and give me my blood glucose level, and it will probably expose a service for that. So one service per one function of the device. And some of the services are standardized, like these 3 ones. So this is the first thing that you need to know to use Bluetooth, what services are. Each service has a unique number. The standard services has predefined numbers. The second thing that you need to know is characteristics. Sorry for the long word. It took me a lot of time to learn how to pronounce it. But we are in Krakow, and you also have some challenging words. Like one that I know from home is odkurzacz, a vacuum cleaner. Is that correct? So characteristics are actually variables that belong to each one of the services. So we had the example of the battery level, and here we have example of a light bulb which has a service, and this service can have 2 characteristics, 2 variables that we can read and write from. One of them will be on and off to turn the bulb on or off, and the other one will control the brightness, how much light the bulb emits. So we have services, and each service has several properties or variables that we can set, and we call these variables characteristics. And now for the most important slide, which summarizes this in a visual way. So we have a Bluetooth device. In Bluetooth, we also call this peripheral. And this device in the example is a smartwatch. It has 2 services, the battery level and the heart rate. And each of the services has characteristics. So, for example, the battery service has only one characteristic where you can read how much battery there is in the device. And the heart rate monitor has one characteristic where you can get the current heart rate, and another one where you can find the maximum. So if you want to display a graph, you can adjust your display or graph to accommodate the possible values of this specific heart rate monitor. So to recap, device or peripheral, services, characteristics, that's all we need to remember. And when we go to write our code, we'll actually go through this flow. First find the device, then find the relevant service, and read or write from this relevant characteristic. Each characteristic can be either read or written to. It depends on the device, but just like any other variable. So that's the basics of Bluetooth. And with that knowledge, we are finally ready to move on to Web Bluetooth. So Web Bluetooth enables us to control Bluetooth low energy devices directly from the web, currently only on Chrome, as we will see in a second. And it only works over HTTPS. Most of the new web APIs only work with HTTPS, like web service workers. I think that WebRTC only works on HTTPS, so this is no exception. It has a lot of security in mind, so you can just ask, please, dear browser, give me access to all the Bluetooth devices around me, because that would be creepy if I opened a web page and suddenly all the devices around me would start to do strange things. Instead, you need to wait for the user to click on some button, and only then you can request from the user approval to connect to a device, and only then you can start interacting with the device. So the user needs to click on some button, you define which, and then you can get access to a device. One more thing to note, it uses promises. Anybody here familiar with promises? Dan, Catch? Very good. If you are not familiar, I suggest that you learn about them, because again, most of the new web APIs like service workers or fetch or web Bluetooth use promises. So that was a few words about Web Bluetooth. The most important thing, I think, that you probably ask yourself, where can I use it? So you can use it on Android 6, Chrome OS, Mac, and Linux on Chrome 53 that was released last week. As you can see, Windows is still missing, and I saw that there are a lot of Windows developers here. I'm trying to add Windows 10 support, so it will also be available on Windows 10, hopefully in a few months. If anybody is good with C++ and wants to help, so please come to me. I would love to have some help with that. There is a link here to a GitHub page which constantly updates and shows which operating systems, which browsers are currently supported. I will give you the link to the slide at the end of the talk, so we'll be able to find this link and follow it. Let's move on to the Web Bluetooth API. The API is, as I told you, based on promises. You can access it through navigator.bluetooth. It always reminds me of 1998, where we had Netscape Navigator. Anybody used it? Do you remember? A lot of you. Do you remember the blink element, the marquee? Yeah, so that's something remaining from those old days. Once we get navigator.bluetooth, we can only call the API, as I explained before, when the user clicks on something. Otherwise, we'll get some security exception or something like that. So we need to call this navigator.bluetooth.requestDevice inside an event handler for click or something like that. And we can just say, give me all the devices and let the user choose. We need to be specific, like give me all the devices with battery service, or give me all the devices with heart rate service. I know that there are like, there is work in progress to add an ability to give the the web page, permission to scan for all devices and make decisions based on that. But currently, we need to be specific. We want this kind of device, as we'll see in a moment. So the second most important slide in the presentation is how to use the API. 5 steps that you need to remember because they repeat themselves, and it's pretty similar to the slide that we have seen with the watch, as you will see in a moment. So first of all, I need to scan for some relevant device, like a heart rate monitor. Then I need to connect to it. Then I need to get the service that I want, like the heart rate service or battery level or whatever I want. Then I need to ask for the characteristic I'm interested in. And finally, I can, when I have this characteristic stored in a variable, I can read or write or subscribe for events from that variable for changes. So connect, scan, connect, get service, get characteristics, and start communicating with the device using these characteristics, reading or writing. So this is one thing you need to remember. We are going to see it now in code, but real quick, because it's basically the same as this list. And I want you to notice that there is a pattern here. Let me show you. So we start by scanning for a relevant device. We just call navigator.bluetooth.requestDevice and give it some filters. In these examples, we're asking for all devices which has the battery service. For standard services, we can give the name, or we can also specify the number of the service. And then the browser will ask the user to choose a device from a list of matching devices. I will show it to you soon in the demos. And then note that you get a promise. Once the user selected a device, this promise will resolve, and you will get a device object. With this device, you can call the device.get.connect to open a connection to the device. So you asked for the device, the user chose one, you got an object pointing to that device, and now you are asking to connect to it. You can ignore the GAT thing. It's something that is internal to Bluetooth Low Energy. You just need to remember that GAT means Bluetooth Low Energy, nothing more. And when we call device.get.connect, we get a promise. And with that promise, we can ask for a specific service. So we get a server object which contains reference to the device that we connected to the GAT server on the device where we can get the services. And we ask, please give me the primary service called battery service. And what do we get? A promise, yeah. And then, once we have this service, we ask for the characteristic, in this case, the battery level, and we get a promise. And finally, when we have the characteristic, we can read a value from it and get a promise with the data view, with the actual bytes from the device. We can also write to it. We create an array with some bytes. In this case, I use 2 bytes. These are the hex values. And then we just write them to the characteristic. So you don't really need to remember the code. You can find it online, just the 5-step. Scan for a device, connect to it, get a service, get characteristic, read or write. And with that, the fun part begins. The demo time. So for the demo time, I want to show you something I brought here for you. Yeah, it's a light bulb. And guess what happens when I turn it on? It lights. Yeah. So as you can probably guess, this is not just a normal light bulb. This is a smart light bulb, a Bluetooth low energy light bulb. And you can get this light bulb or similar light bulb for about $10. That would be around 40 zlotys, online, shipping included. So they are affordable, not too expensive. And they support Bluetooth Low Energy. So what we are going to do now, we are going to connect to it from my web browser and control it. Now, I have Windows, and as I said, Windows is still not supported, so I'm going to use my Android phone for the mission. I hope it's still working. Yes, perfect. For that, I'm going to use a trick that let me debug my Chrome on the phone from the computer. It's called Chrome://inspect. And how many of you know that this is possible? Debug. OK, perfect. Debugging Chrome on Android from the computer. So I'm going to do it. I have this web page from my GitHub open with the web Bluetooth code. So once I click inspect, it will open Chrome Developer Tools and show you the device screen as well. So here you can see a simple web page with a single button that says connect. It's running on my smartphone, as you probably can't see here because it's small. And we are going to click connect in a moment. Before that, let's quickly go over the code to see what connect actually does. So back to the code. Is the font size OK? OK. I got some thumbs up from the back, so it's OK. So yeah, so even a little bit bigger. So as you can see, the connect function does a lot of console logs that we'll see in a moment. And it requests the device, as we have seen before, with a specific service. This is the service number that allows you to control the light on this specific bulb. It's a Chinese bulb. It is not documented. But if you are interested, you can find, I reverse engineered it, and I showed how to do it. You can find it on my blog, how I reverse engineered the protocol and what the protocol looks like. And we request the device, we get a promise, then we connect to the device. We get a promise, then we ask for the primary service, which is the light service, the same one that we used when you scanned for the device. With this service, we get the characteristic, and then we do something horrible. Do you see this line? This is a global variable. We are using a global variable. Don't try it at home. It's OK in demos. So once we got the characteristic, we store it in a global variable. And as we'll see in a moment, we'll use this variable to write new instructions to the bulb. So we have scan for devices, connect, get service, get characteristic, and finally save it in a global variable. Don't write it at home. And we'll use it in a moment. So I'm going to hit the connect button now. When I hit it, I will have a pop-up dialog on my screen. You won't see it because it's operating system dialog. It's not a part of the browser. But you can see the console log. And some of you can probably see that I got some white pop-up over my screen. For those who can't, I actually took a screenshot beforehand. So this is what I see on my screen right now. I see a list of matching devices. In this case, it's this smart bulb. And I can select it and click pair, which I'm going to do now. Let's just open the console, so you will be able to see it working. I'm pairing, and you can see that it actually found a device, connected, got a service, got a characteristic, and it's stored in a global variable. Just before we are going to test and to see if this is working, let me quickly show you the code for changing the color. So it's a little function, get red, green, and blue values. And it simply prepares an array with some magic numbers that are part of the protocol of this specific bulb. And it includes the red, the green, and the blue values. And what it does, it takes the LED characteristics, the global variable that we saved, and write this value to it. So once we are connected, reading and writing is super easy. We just save the characteristic somewhere and call read or write value. OK, let's change the color. So which one do you prefer, red, green, or blue? Blue. Everybody says blue. How do you say blue in Polish? Niebieski? OK, I will work on that. Ah, yeah, I got it. Somebody clapped at the back. Niebieski. So let's do it niebieski. As you can see, it instantly reacts. Let's try the other colors. I think green is zielony, something like that. Yeah. And with red, I still don't know, but I can still click on it. Now, as you can see, the reaction is quite immediate. The moment I press something on my phone, it changes. I can do it real quick to create a disco effect. But we are actually developers, and developers are lazy. We don't like clicking a lot, and we also don't like being limited. Why just red, green, and blue when this bulb can do much more? In order to make it more interesting, I have here some code that sets the color to random using math.random. It simply selects random number for the red, green, and blue components. Let me paste it into this page. And we are going to set the color to random. Any guesses what the color would be? OK, somebody is correct. Let's see. I heard pink, yellow. It's actually green whitish. But going repeatedly and doing it is still boring. Let's use our JavaScript skills to maybe create a timer, set interval, and then we can call random color every, how much? Half a second, 20 milliseconds? OK, I think the average is around, somebody wanted 1 millisecond. You really want to challenge it. Let's try it. I don't know if you will see anything. Probably a lot of errors. I haven't tried it at home. Let's see. Yeah, well, it works, but we also get some errors because it's too fast. So this is the disco effect. And I'm actually happy that you chose a fast rate, because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to lock my smartphone screen, which will move Chrome into the background. And we'll see how it works when the web page is no longer in front. So I'm going to lock my screen right now. And as you can see, Chrome has put into the background. The code is still running inside Chrome in the background. My screen is locked. And as you can see, it's still running. It's running much slower because it gets less CPU time. You can see on the console log, it runs around once a second. But that's an important thing with Web Bluetooth. Once you get a connection, it stays alive until either the user closes the tab or you disconnect, or the operating system kills Chrome because it's out of memory. So that was the first live demo, controlling this smart bulb, which is a really affordable consumer bulb, using Web Bluetooth from any web page. Let's see what else do we have. So this was the first demo. And for the second demo, we actually have, I want to introduce to you a small friend of mine. He's a little shy, so I hope I won't get embarrassed by all the audience. I will also point the camera in favor of those who are sitting at the back. So this is a small friend of mine that I 3D printed a few months ago. Its name is Purple Eye. Meet Purple Eye, a small 3D printed robot. And Let's see. OK. You see it's back with disco lights. I think it does the work. And now I would like to have some volunteer from the audience with Android 6. Anybody from the audience who have Android 6 that wants to come and do a demo? You want? Yeah, come. We are going to test web Bluetooth in real life. So this is Android 6, right?
So we can do 7? 7?
7 is also good. Always living on the edge. So if you open the notification bar, you should see nearby purple eye. Click on it. Yeah, maybe you want to come here. So, and I think you got a web page, right? And you have a connect button there. Click on it. If it doesn't work, maybe you have an older Chrome. So go to Chrome :flags. We are going to open for Chrome the other version, 52. You still need to open a flag to use web Bluetooth. And we are going to open this flag live and hope that everything works. Web Bluetooth enable. OK. And now it's enabled. We can try to oh, I closed it. Yeah. So let's reconnect to it. Do you still have the notification?
No, it's gone.
No worries, history.
No.
So what we are going to do now is going to connect to the robot. This robot has a small Arduino board in its head, in its brain, and is going to try to control it through web Bluetooth. Have you got it to work?
No, there's no notification.
No worries. I remember the URL for that case. It's just, yeah, it's the purple eye. Do you see it? Yeah. And now you can connect to it. Does it work? Yeah. Let's show it to the camera. I don't know if you can actually see it, but do you see it?
There is a notification?
Yeah, there is a notification. It says purple eye. So now let's connect to the robot. I chose somebody with a really small font, that's challenging. And maybe you can ask it to stand. Yeah, and now perhaps spread its legs. Yeah, and now maybe it can dance for us, I don't know. Does it have such function of dancing? Yeah, well. And finally, maybe it can do the shimmy before it falls off the table. Yeah, it does the shimmy, yeah. Thank you, Purple Eye. Oh, and it also has a nice hat that goes with it, just to make him more fit for the circus. So this was Purple Eye. Thank you very much for doing a demo and challenging us with Android 7. And with that, I want to conclude with 2 messages for you. The first one is, do use web Bluetooth. Chrome now has an origin trial. Origin trial means that you can register your website, add some code, HTML code to your website, and web Bluetooth will be open for all the visitors of your websites. So in this case, we had to enable web Bluetooth to the browser flags. But once you join the origin trial, everybody who visits your website with Chrome will have web Bluetooth open. So do join the origin trial and build something cool with web Bluetooth. As I said, the slides will be online on my Twitter in a few moments, so you will be able to get them from there. And the second thing, do you know Microsoft Edge? There is such browser, Microsoft Edge. Anybody use it? All hands went out. One behind. OK, so Microsoft Edge has actually opened the vote if you want to have web Bluetooth on Edge. So when you get to the slide, click on this link. It will open this implement web Bluetooth GATT client API. And just click vote. And I discovered that you can actually give it 3 votes at once. So if everybody does this, it will help to raise this feature and get also Microsoft to implement it. Once it will be both in Chrome and Edge, I think it will also drive other browsers to adopt it. So please, do join the Origin trial and do cool things with Bluetooth, web Bluetooth, and do vote for it so we'll also see it on other browsers. And finally, as I promised, this is the link to the slides, and I'm going to share it on Twitter, on my Twitter as we speak. So you can find it on my Twitter page. Yeah, tweet done. Or you can copy it from here. This is a 0. And one final word. I want you to build awesome things, even more than those with web Bluetooth. So go home, think about what you want to build. The devices are available online. You can buy this bulb for $10, and I've seen people done really cool things. So go home, experiment with web Bluetooth, and give me and the Chrome team some feedback about how we can make it more awesome for you. Thank you. We have 5 minutes for questions, so if there are any questions, I will gladly accept them. Yeah, one question from there.
You're saying that currently you need to filter by a service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how about custom services? Can you do that as well?
So this nice guy asked me about filtering. When I ask for the device, I need to actually filter by a service. Can I do it with custom, non-standard services? And the answer is yes. Instead of writing the service name, such as battery level, I can simply write the number of the service. It can be a short number like 16-bit or 128-bit, which is the longer variation of GUID for services. So thanks for the question. Anyone wants to ask? Yeah, you. I love this question. So you asked me about security. So as you could see, everybody could connect to this robot or light bulb, no security at all. And currently, there is support for securing the devices in Bluetooth, but unfortunately, the cheaper devices don't implement it. So if you got, I rest my case. I don't know who connected to it, but let's remove the head so it will be more stable. Yeah, so, but somebody is commanding it from a remote. Well done. Just proved my point about security. Oh, don't be dead. Let me just turn it off before it kills itself. Okay. So, yeah, in lower-end devices, security is a problem. There are some ways to pair the device. And once it's paired, it will only speak with device it's paired with. So I've seen some devices which only let you pair for one time with a device, so I can pair some device with my smartphone, and then only I will be able to connect to it in the future and control it. I've seen other mechanisms, such as devices that need you to type in some password and write it to some characteristic before you can write or read from them. So there are solutions, and with the latest version of Bluetooth, Bluetooth 4.2, they actually made the pairing much more secure. They used an elliptic curve, something, key generation algorithm, which is supposedly more secure. So that's a good question. I hope that we will see that more devices implement those security features, and we won't let our robots die because somebody wants to play with them. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? I think we have time for one more. Okay, two more. You are going first. Mm-hmm. So the question was, what happens if instead of the user clicking on some button to start the Bluetooth communication, this is triggered by JavaScript. As far as I know, the browser will block it. It checks for actual user interaction. I think that there is a proposal for a permission API that will allow your web page to request permission to talk to Bluetooth devices around it, just like native apps. I don't know what's the state of this proposal at this moment, but I believe that in the future it will be possible to run in the background as a service worker and scan for Bluetooth device and speak to them, and then we'll be able to do the same as native apps. So good questions. Thank you. We had one more question over there. Yeah. Okay, so the question was about primary services and secondary services. Some devices do have secondary services, and if I remember correctly, you can query for them using get service. If you check out my blog, I introduced there some applications for Android and iOS that allow you to scan for all the Bluetooth devices around you and get a list of all the services that they have and all the characteristics. So when you get a device you are not familiar with, and it may have some primary and other services, you can actually use this tool to discover them and start interacting with them. So thank you for the question. We are out of time, so if you have any more questions, I'm around. Feel free to ping me on Twitter, and thank you.